So, you've done quite a lot of work on the virtues of Augustus and the idea of Augustus as a pater patriae, a title that he took in 2 BCE. So today's just a really quick exercise, really looking at what exactly did the Romans think were the roles and responsibilities of a father. So to do that, I thought we would take a look at Seneca, writing in De Clementia. It's around about 55, 56 CE. He was trying to educate the Emperor Nero and encourage Nero to act more like a good emperor. So he makes use of Augustus as an example to show how a father should act. So we're going to read it through. It's only very short, and you will find it's quite useful. So, what then is his duty? So this is the duty of a prince. It is that of the good parent. So we've got that idea of the father coming in there already, who is wont to reprove his children, sometimes gently, sometimes with threats, who at times admonishes them even by stripes, so beats them. Does any father in his senses disinherit a son for his first offence? Only when great and repeated wrongdoing has overcome his patience, only when what he fears outweighs what he reprimands, does he resort to the decisive pen. But first he makes many an effort to reclaim a character that is still unformed, though inclined now to the more evil side. When the case is hopeless, he tries extreme measures. No one resorts to the exaction of punishment until he has exhausted all the means of correction. So your father, or the good father, does not immediately resort to the pen, doesn't immediately chuck you out of the will and disinherit you and say you are no longer my son. No, he tells you off, he encourages you, perhaps he beats you, but he certainly doesn't immediately go for the most extreme measure possible. This is the idea of Clementia, really, of not going for extreme punishment, but instead showing clemency wherever possible. This is the duty of a father, and it is also the duty of a prince, whom not in empty flattery we have been led to call the father of his country, pater patriae. For other designations have been granted merely by way of honour. Some we have styled the great, the fortunate, the august, and we have heaped upon pretentious greatness all possible titles as a tribute to such men. But to the father of his country we have given the name in order that he may know he has been entrusted with a father's power, which is most forbearing in its care for the interests of his children and subordinates, subordinates his own to theirs. So the father puts his children's interests before his own. You might think about Augustus not spending his money on himself, but instead putting the interests of his people, his children, before himself. Okay. Slow would a father be to sever his own flesh and blood. Aye, after severing he would yearn to restore them, and while severing he would groan aloud, hesitating often and long, for he comes near to condemning gladly who condemns swiftly, and to punishing unjustly who punishes unduly. So there's that sense that the father doesn't want to punish you. Yes? He does it reluctantly. He does it as little as possible and as gently as possible. And there's that idea of Clementia coming in. Within my memory, so that's Seneca's memory, the people in the forum stabbed Tricio, a Roman knight, with their writing styles because he had flogged his son to death. So in strict law, a father could beat his son to death, but the people in Rome were so shocked by this that they attacked the father with their pens. And when you bear in mind a pen was for scratching into wax, it would be a sharpened piece of metal, and you absolutely could kill someone with that. Augustus Caesar's authority barely rescued him from the indignant hands of fathers no less than of sons. So Augustus had to rescue this man. So Tricio clearly should have shown more Clementia to his son, but Augustus showed Clementia to Tricio by rescuing him. Augustus Caesar's authority barely rescued him. Tarius, on the other hand, having detected his son in a plot against his life, when When after investigating the case he found him guilty, won the admiration of everyone because, satisfying himself with exile and a luxurious exile, he detained the parricide at Marseille, furnishing him with the same liberal allowance that he had been in the habit of giving him before his guilt. The effect of this generosity was that in a community where a villain never lacks a defender, no one doubted that the accused man had been justly condemned, since a father who could not hate him had found it possible to condemn him. So strictly speaking, if someone tried to kill their father in Rome, you could give them the sack. You tie them in a sack with a monkey and a snake and a cockerel and throw them in the river to drown. But clearly here Tarius has shown Clementia he's gone for the more gentle punishment and has merely sent his son to Marseille and still left him with an allowance with money. I will now use this very case to show you an example of a good prince with whom you may compare the good father. When Tarius was ready to open the inquiry on his son, he invited Augustus Caesar to attend the council. Augustus came to the hearth of a private citizen, sat beside him and took part in the deliberation of another household. He did not say, "Rather let the man come to my house," for if he had, the inquiry would have been conducted by Caesar, not by the father. When the case had been heard and all the evidence had been sifted, what the young fellow said in his defence and what was brought up in accusation against him, Caesar requested each man to give his verdict in writing, lest all should vote according to his lead. Then, before the tablets were opened, he solemnly declared he would accept no bequest from Tarius, who was a rich man. Some will say he showed weakness in fearing he might seem to be trying to clear the field for his own prospects by sentencing his son. I think differently. Any one of us might well have had enough faith in his own good conscience to withstand hostile criticism, but princes are bound to give much heed even to report. He solemnly declared he would not accept a bequest. Tarius did indeed on one and the same day lose a second heir also, but Caesar saved the integrity of the vote. And after he had proved that his severity was disinterested, for a prince should always have regard to this, he said the son ought to be banished to whatever place the father should decide. His sentence was not the sack, nor serpents, nor prison. So we see that Augustus being called in by people in the state to help them with their family disputes. He comes to their house. He says, "I'm not here to take your money. I'm not going to encourage you to punish your son because I want to get your money from you." So he says, "Before we begin, I will take no money from you. I won't have anything from you in your will or anything like that. Absolutely not." And then he encouraged Tarius not to throw his son in the sack, but instead to banish him. So Augustus encouraging Clementia, but also Augustus as that moral exemplar, the man you invite in to your house. He said that the mildest sort of punishment ought to satisfy a father in the case of a son who was very youthful and had been moved to commit this crime, but in committing it had shown himself faint-hearted, which was next door to being innocent. Therefore the son should be banished from the city and from his father's sight. How worthy he, Augustus, was of being asked by parents to share their counsels. How worthy of being recorded as co-heir with the children who were innocent. This is the spirit of mercy, of Clementia, that graces princes. So Seneca praises Augustus for his clemency, because not only is Augustus clement, he's here encouraging other people to be clement. And he says this is how a prince should be. Clementia is the virtue of the powerful. I can't give you Clementia. I don't have the power. If one of you murders one of the other people in the class, it's not up to me to say, nope, there will be no punishment. I can't. I don't have that power. Augustus does have that power. So Clementia is the virtue of a prince and of a father, of someone with power. Wherever he goes, he should make everything more peaceful. In the eyes of a ruler, let no man count for so little that his destruction is not noted. Be he what he may, he is part of the realm. From the forms of lesser power, let us draw a parallel for a great power. So from the power of a normal father up to the power of an emperor. There is more than one kind of power. A prince has power over his subjects, a father over his children, a teacher over his pupils, a tribune or a centurion over his soldiers. Will he not seem the worst sort of father who controls his children by constant whippings for even the most trifling offences? And of teachers, which will reflect more credit upon the liberal studies, the one who will draw the blood of his pupils if their memory is weak, or if the eye is not quick and lags in reading, or the one who chooses rather by kind admonition and a sense of shame to correct and so teach his pupils? So some of you have had emails from me chasing you up for pieces of work that are missing, and I like to think I don't go straight from one piece of work is a day late to you are immediately expelled and shot. Yes, same thing he's saying, going for clemency, not going for the most extreme punishments possible. No. Yeah. Show me a tribune or centurion that is harsh. He will cause deserters, who, all the same, are pardonable. Is it just, I ask, a man should be subjected to severer and harsher rule than dumb beasts?
This came back from a search.
And yet the horse is not plied with the lash and terrified by the horsebreaker who is an expert. For it will grow fearful and obstinate unless it is soothed with caressing hand. The same is true of the hunter, whether he is teaching young dogs to follow the trail or make use of those ready trained for rooting out the game or running it down. He neither employs constant threats, that will break their spirit and all their native qualities will be gradually lost in a timidity unworthy of their breed, nor does he allow them to range and roam about without restraint. This applies again to drivers of the more sluggish beasts of burden, which though they are born to abuse and misery, may be driven to refuse the yoke by too much cruelty. So he finishes here with this parallel. Even with animals, yes, you don't beat your dog if it poos in the wrong place when you're house training it. You don't beat your horse or whatever it might be. No, you use the least possible action wherever possible. So Augustus is used as the exemplar. We've seen that before. This is going to tick two different boxes. One, the very last section of this course is how was Augustus viewed after he was dead. So here we've got Seneca using him as a moral exemplar 50 plus years after his death. And also we've got here a real sense of what it means to be pater patriae. What are the behaviours of a father that the Romans were hoping they would see in their princeps? And that's exactly what Seneca is telling us. Excellent.